Hello everyone and welcome back. It's another podcast episode. If you watched my last podcast episode, I feel like I always have to start like, if you watched last one, and then continuing on from that. I don't know. Is that normal for anyone else who records videos? Do you always refer back to the previous one? I feel like I always do. Anyway, if you watched that last one, I was wearing a fluffy jumper and I was all like, I'm really warm. I'm even more warm today than I was last time. And not because the weather is absolutely amazing. The weather's very confused today here in York. But I've just realised, like, I get so excited for when I get to film because I really enjoy this. But I get so stressed out getting everything ready, making sure I've got everything, making a list of what I kind of want to talk about just to make sure I don't really forget anything. And then by the time I sit down, I'm just like, tired, so tired. And as I say that, I've now just realised I didn't get myself a drink. So I'm going to regret that later when I'll be talking and there'll be no tea, there'll be no water. So at some point I'll probably get up and grab a drink. And also say hello to my washing basket that you can see today because I was too lazy to move it. Keeping it real. Just a little lovely chatty intro. Anyway, welcome! New video, new podcast episode. I have quite a bit to talk about. I always have quite a bit to talk about. But I feel like I'm just looking at the pile of things I need to talk about and it's a bit overwhelming. But we'll get through it. But first, let's talk about the beautiful thing that I'm wearing. So this is a cozy classic raglan, which I've never, I'm pretty sure, talked about on any of my podcast episodes. I've talked about one I've made for a friend of mine, but I've never talked about the one I made for myself, which was inspired by the one I made for her. I think I even showed like the finished object and everything in my episodes from last year, and it was a dark blue colour with a suri that was much lighter, and that was the first time I'd really done anything where I was like, ooh, look at this mild effect, and since then I've loved it. So last episode, doing it again. Last episode, I was wearing my Aurora sweater, which is now live. So if any of you really liked the look of that pattern is available to buy. And I love mild sweaters now. And so this is actually the one I started first. And I finished it. Quite a while ago. I was working on it towards the end of 2020. But then I think I finished it early January once I was back in York because, well, you either know the story at this point or you don't. If you want to know the story, you can watch my first video back in 2021. I don't want to get into it anymore. I've talked about it enough. And I've got so much to talk about. But anyway, so this is the Cozy Classic Raglan and the yarn that I used. Does anyone want to guess? Do you want to guess the designer? The designer? No, the dyer. That's the word I'm looking for. The dyer behind this yarn. It's Georgie. The Fibre Fox. Of course it is. So I actually decided, I don't even know what inspired this. I think I couldn't make up my mind about what colours I wanted. So I used two different colours. I used suri instead of mohair because I prefer suri, and that's what I used for the Cozy Classic Raglan for the friend of mine. So this is Flax, this is the Fellowship, and the suri that I used the whole way through is Mirkwood. And I love it. So I've got it on the collar, the ribbing, both top and at the bottom. And it's now been blocked. That is why I can actually like show it off properly. So if you've never seen the Cozy Classic Raglan or you've never knitted it, it's, as the name suggests, it's a raglan jumper. So you can see the raglan there. And it's cozy because, well, you're holding a fingering weight yarn with either mohair or suri. Like I said in previous episodes, I prefer suri. I think it's less hairy and sheddy so it doesn't get everywhere while you're knitting and when you wear it. And I think there's something, I think it has less of a halo than mohair does. Oh, you can really see the colours, how nice is that? So it's still got that fluffy halo, but I find it's not as much as with mohair, and I quite like that it's not as halo-y. And this is gonna sound really weird, but if you felt Surrey, I think you'll know what I mean. It feels almost oily, and I don't know, just sort of grippier, and like it's got more substance to it than mohair. And so I think it meshes much more with the fingering weight yarn than a mohair does. But personal preference. I still use mohair, I just really did prefer Surrey, and sometimes you just can't afford the Surrey because there's less yardage. So I think a 50-gram skein from Georgie has 300 meters instead of kind of the usual 400, 425. So I needed more Surrey than I would have needed if I bought mohair, but I love the end effect. And I love that I actually made the choice to go for like a contrasting colour. But yeah, I've actually worn it before, even though I hadn't blocked it yet. And it didn't, to be honest, it didn't really need blocking. It's mainly, I find, the ribbing that settles a bit, and I find all the stitches obviously relax with blocking. But it also helps to mesh the Surrey with the fingering weight yarn. So I love the variegation, and all that variegation that you see is just from the Mirkwood Surrey. So Mirkwood's the colour, Surrey being the base. But yeah, love it, love it, love it. And like I said, I actually finished it back in January, and then it was just sitting there. I'd weaved in most of the ends, I'd woven in most of the ends, but just hadn't blocked it yet, and it just came off the blocking mats I think last week, so I was like, I'll wear it for today. So that's my first finished object that you've never seen. I think I did post something about it when I actually finished it or was close to finishing it on Instagram, but this is kind of your first look here. But yeah, that's the first finished object, and there is another one. I feel like I completely forgot to kind of do a proper intro or anything, but that's life, isn't it? But I guess my name's Nina, this is my knitting podcast where I mainly talk about knitting, but occasionally I've also got crochet projects that I sort of do, and my first kind of crafty love, I would say, was probably sewing, and I'm hoping to get back into that. It's just I find it harder because I need to do so much setup to make sure I can sit down and sew. And my brain keeps talking about knitting and wanting me to knit. Anyway. I'm all over the place today. The second finished object I have, which has not been blocked, classic me, and I think, let me check, I think it has most of the ends woven in. There's just a couple, I think, in the, yeah, there's a couple inside that I haven't done yet, but this baby is done. Oh, I've got to remember to not hold it all the way up. So this is my Bregne sweater. Apologies for that pronunciation. I'm trying my best. So this is by Lerga from Fibre, who I've mentioned many times before because I love her podcast, but I also love her designs. So what was I up to last time? I think last time, I was working on the first sleeve, and I think I was up to about here, and I'd hoped that I'd actually have gotten the sleeve done before filming, but it just didn't work out. But finished that sleeve, finished this sleeve, but before I actually did the second sleeve, I did the neckband, which I really like because it's not it's not ribbing. So you just knit and then it rolls in like that, and that's how it's meant to be. So when I come to blocking this, I want to make sure that stays rolled in because that's really cute. I like that little design feature. But yeah, so you've got the herringbone stitch at the top, and then it just moves into plain stockinette. And to be honest, this part I think doesn't need blocking. The herringbone, the stockinette, sits really beautifully with the yarn that I've used. So this is the Gathering Storm by Wild Atlantic Yarns. It's 100% merino. Absolutely beautiful yarn. But once again, it's towards the bottom, the ribbing. My pearl stitches aren't always the most kind of even tension-wise and just don't look the best. And obviously ribbing also contracts a bit and I don't want that. So it's this that needs blocking. The cuff on the sleeves I think is okay, but the decreases along here kind of just need to relax a bit. So I am going to block it, but I'm thinking about potentially trying steam blocking for this one first so that I can sort of just leave this top part alone and maybe just gently steam block it, just if there is anything that needs to relax a bit, it can. But I don't think I want to wet block it, which is very new for me. But yeah, absolutely beautiful design. I love this pattern so much. It was a bit hard going at first because you had to work the herringbone stuff flat, which was challenging because it was just a bit boring. Not really boring, it was just hard on my hands because you use such big needles. So this top bit had to be on 8mm needles, because this is a much tighter stitch than you have later with stockinette, so then later you knit with 5. But it was, by the time you finished the back and got into the shoulders and the front, I've talked about this before, it just kind of then flew off my needles. And then you start working in the round for the body, and then it was just, I just flew through it. So I haven't worn it yet, because to be honest, it's been a bit too warm. And while I really love the pattern, I'm not sure if I'll ever make another one, because these thick jumpers, because it's Aran weight, I don't always get a lot of wear out of them because I run hot. It's very rare that I'm actually cold. And the only thing I can sort of see is maybe a really, really rustic, neutral coloured yarn where I make it so that the main focus will then just be on the herringbone stitch, because in person you can see it, but it's definitely not as obvious as it is in the one that Lega made for the pictures and stuff in her pattern. But I do love this combo, I really do. So I might make one again in the future, but the reason I'm a bit hesitant about saying I'll definitely make another one is just how much wear I'll actually get out of it. But I'd love to make another one just because it was fun to knit. I really enjoyed it. Struggled a bit at first, but then I just kind of fell in love with the whole process. But yeah, so that's done. So hopefully I'll get that blocked soon. Classic, just covered in hair. And I might, depending on the weather, be able to wear it for my next episode. But I also don't want to sweat like crazy. So I might, if it is quite warm, I might just throw it on, show it off, like I've done with this one, but then take it off again. Because it's getting warm here in the UK. But that's another finished object. So that one actually went by really quickly. I've got one more finished object. If I can find the second one. There we go. I have not shown these off at all. I think I was definitely working on these when I recorded my latest podcast episode. But I think I just didn't show them off because they were kind of just almost a palette cleanser project. And I don't know, I felt like I had nothing to really say about it, and my episodes are always so long anyway, so I just left it. But I finished a pair of socks. They have not been blocked. That's why everything's all like crinkly crankly. But I have worn them. I wore them once. I wore them yesterday actually. They were next to me on the sofa and I was like, I've got cold feet, I'll wear them. So it's literally just a vanilla sock. 1x1 ribbing, even though I actually would rather do 2x2, but every time I come to do socks I forget to do 2x2. I used 60 stitches, I'm pretty sure, because I found that fits me better. A Fish Lips Kiss heel I've been enjoying that. I just find it goes a bit quicker and I don't have to think too much and there's no counting or anything involved. I'm not sure I like the fit as much as a heel flap and gusset, but it's quick and easy. And then the way I like to do my toe decreases is once I get to, I think it's about 4.5 centimeters of my full foot length, I decrease every second round until I have 9 stitches on each needle. So I use DPN, so 4 needles, 9 stitches each. And once I've got that, I decrease until I've got 4 on each needle. So decreasing every round. So that's kind of my recipe for vanilla socks. The length that I make the leg varies. Here I wanted to get a full repeat of this yarn. But sometimes I've made quite short socks, sometimes I've made these even longer, like I've shared some socks I made with the mystery sock club that Georgie did last year. So there were some blue socks that I shared off. I think it was my first episode for 2021 that I shared those. And those were quite long because I wanted to wear them with my boots and have them like stick out a bit at the top. But this was literally just, I wanted the yarn to kind of shine through. So the yarn I used for this is an Opal one, and it's part of their Hundertwasser Collection. And this one's inspired by the painting, The Street to Socialism. I've got a notebook, that's why there it is. Because I remember the name better in German. The Road to Socialism, my bad. So I actually got this yarn from Helena. She ended up winning it, but then kind of was like, ugh, it's not really my colours, I don't want it. She was like, do you or your mum want it? And I was like, oh, Hundertwasser is cool, my mum will probably enjoy this. And then I kept it. So sorry, mum. Could have been yours. I have got a decent amount of yarn left. So I didn't have it in the room. Spent ages looking through my pile of stuff on my bed. And I was like, maybe it's still in the living room. And it was just waiting on the sofa, sitting there going, you forgot me. And since I was in the living room anyway, I got myself a glass of water. And also started emptying the dishwasher. And then I was like, Nina, you're still filming. What are you doing? Anyway, this is how much yarn I've left. So quite a bit. So I'll either make just some random socks or see if my mum does want some. Just put my notebook over there. But if I do make another pair, so I made these matching. So there's an extra bit of yarn I have from where I had to kind of wind that up to make sure I was starting at the same place for the second sock. But what I might do if I make another pair or attempt to make another pair of socks is probably do it toe up and 2 at a time. Both of those things I've done now, so it's not too scary. And that way I can make sure I use the most out of the yarn. So we'll see. It will happen at some point. But yeah, I literally just needed something really simple, mindless, nothing to really stress or worry about with my knitting. So I did these and ended up doing them. The first sock took me a while. I find I always take a really long time to get to the heel, and then once I've done the heel, the sock just flies off my knitting needles. But yeah, so nothing really special other than I think the yarn is absolutely amazing. And if you look at the painting, I might try and include a picture of it. It's, yep, completely fits and makes me think of it. That's why I quite like Opal yarn. I think some of the colours they do is just so beautiful. But that's the last finish object. Well, no, not really. Remember how I was talking about I have this kind of secret project? I'm trying to finish some older projects instead of constantly casting on new things. So I've finished one of those, and I'll film a clip of me talking about it just like I do with everything else. But I'm not going to include it in this video. I'm going to include it in a future video where once I've kind of sent that off, because there's other bits that need to go with it. So once I've sent that off, the person's got it, then I'll share that in a future video. But I'll film it now. So there is a fourth finished object as well. That's a lot. Oh, well, I didn't finish this any time. I didn't finish that in the last 2 weeks. I just blocked it. It doesn't count. Okay, so what have I been working on? I've been working on a lot. Because apparently I've been a bit of a monogamous knitter for me. That I've really, you know, focused on finishing that Bregne sweater, finish that secret project, the socks, and then every time I finish something, then I pick up a new project and work until a certain point before kind of moving on. So the first one I'll talk about is in my Fibre Fox project bag. So this is the one that came with the deluxe advent calendar in 2020. And I've also got some lovely pins on there. So that's a Ducky Darlings one. That's a Fibre Fox one. I think it's just her normal one. Because she's got different ones now. With like a winter one, a spring one, things like that. And that's a West Green Loft Yarns one. I love them. Though I have to be careful. I never really thought about this, but your yarn can get caught on these. So I just have to be a bit careful. Because I'm a bit, just throw everything in a bag. Anyway, nobody needs to know that much about me and my habits. This, oh, it's so beautiful. This is the Isgold Sweater that I've been working on for my friend Helena, who runs Maed Yarns, and so I'm knitting this for her using her own yarn. So I mentioned in my last episode that she had a few issues with the pattern and kind of just gave up on it. And I said, you know what, I'll knit it for you because it's too beautiful and I know to, you know, not do it. And it's good for her to show off her yarn. Anyway, this is where we're at. So I've done the V-neck. I'm worried. Can you see this? Of course you can see this. You have to decrease for the V-neck here, and over the last few days as I've been working on this has been stretching out more and more. So I'm hoping when I block it, I can fix this. And I did my best to work these decreases on either side a bit tighter because I could see from the beginning. But I feel like the tighter I work, the worse it got. So I hope that will block out, because I really don't want to have to do that again. But so I've done the ribbing for the V-neck now. I now have 2 sleeves. So there's sleeve number 1, sleeve number 2. And now I know it looks almost done. It's not. We've still got some body left to do. So the Isgold Sweater is by Caitlin Hunter, and the reason I've currently taken a break from it is no more yarn. There is one more skein. Helena's just trying to hunt it down. So she moved house recently. So it's just, if any of you have ever moved, it's a hassle sometimes to try and find things. So I'm waiting for that skein to turn up and then I can finish it. But the way that the Isgold is meant to work, well, as in like the way you're meant to work it, is, so it's top down. You've got your cabled raglan increases here, and you work the body. So once you've split for sleeves, you work the body for a while, and then you're meant to do decreases over, like work a decrease round, knit quite a few rounds, work a decrease round for a while until kind of the length suggests in the pattern, or longer if you want. But I talked to Helena about, does she want that? Does she want it to be more kind of fitted the longer it, like around kind of your butt area? And she was like, I don't think so. And I was like, that's what I would have probably said as well. I don't think I would want that. So I'm not working those decreases, so I'm literally just doing the stockinette until I reach the desired length, and then I just have to work the ribbing. So there's one more skein coming, which I think is about 365 meters, something like that. And where is it? I have put in a stitch marker somewhere. There we go. So up to this orange stitch mark is 8 inches. And to get the desired length mentioned in the pattern, I'm still waiting to hear whether Helena wants it longer or not. I have to work 4 inches from here, so I'm actually almost there. So I can easily make it longer, no big deal. And we were worried I'd run out of yarn. I've got plenty, with that last skein, obviously. But yeah, so the yarn is dyed by Helena, and it's this purple, lavendery kind of grey, absolutely beautiful. And hopefully I'll be able to get that to her quite soon. But I've been just knitting away like crazy on this because I've just got stock in it. There's no decreases, nothing. So I'm just working and working and working, doing a couple of rows whenever I sit down to knit. And then it's just a few, maybe another inch or so, depending if she wants it longer. Do the ribbing and then it's done. And I'll probably weave in all the ends, not cut them, and send it to her like that so she can try it on and see how does she need to block it. Does she need to, you know, maybe get more length out of the sleeve? Does she need them to be a bit wider and all of that? So I will leave that all up to Helena to make sure it fits as well as it can, because it's really hard. Like, even if I send her measurements for things, it is quite a, like, the raglan goes quite deep. So saying, like, from the underarm, the measurement down is 12 inches doesn't mean much, because this probably isn't going to sit at her underarm. It's going to sit further down. So that way she can try it on and kind of just block it to her desired measurements, really. Because it's superwash yarn. It's her merino bamboo silk. Pretty sure. If that's wrong, I'll find out from her, confirm again. But yeah, so currently that just worries me a bit, and I really do hope that will block out. I'm sure it will. Most things do tend to block out. It's the first time I've had to do a V-neck ribbing like this. I've never had that before. I've always just kind of had to knit all the way around, not do a proper V-neck. It looks pretty, it's just, I want to make sure that's going to sort itself out. But I guess, because I haven't really talked about this, I mentioned, I think, a bit in my last podcast video that the pattern wasn't the easiest, but I think I didn't go into very specific details about some stuff. Or maybe I did. Did I? I'm going to keep it quick and quickly mention it. So you do increases for the body and for the sleeve. And then you stop doing increases for the body and only do the sleeve for a while. And normally with increases, you do an increase round, then you knit a round. So it's every second row that you increase stitches, and it just makes it even. It also means you don't get like bat wings, because that's, if you increase every round, it tends to create bat wings and that kind of shape. So that's all fine, that's what I'm used to. But when you switch from doing the increases for everything and then only do it for the sleeves, the pattern tells you to work a right side row. It doesn't specify if it's an increase round or not. Now, the right side row you've been working for many, many rows up until that point has been an increase row. So I assumed, I guess it's an increase row, because it'd be really weird just to knit a row. Why would you not just say knit a row working, you know, the cable pattern? And then the next row is just a knit row. So you've got 3 knitted rows in a row if you work it that way. Because I contacted Caitlin Hunter, also contacted the Ravelry group, and they confirmed that. They said, yep, so you increase everywhere, you knit a round, you knit another round, you knit a round, and then you only increase for the sleeve. And I was like, but 3 knit rows right after each other? What? Why? You don't have to do it that way. And the response I got, while it was helpful to kind of hear this is how it was designed, it sort of felt like nobody picked up on that, or maybe people did, and they're just justifying why they haven't changed it. Because one, I said, well, actually, it's very unclear. And the response I kind of got was, well, everyone else seems to be fine with it. And I was like, is that really how you want to handle that? Why would you not just quickly do an edit? It then sends that update to everyone. It's not a big deal. And they kind of addressed the whole issue with the 3 knit rows being like, oh, well, when Caitlin designed this, she didn't have an issue with it. She thought it didn't look bad, so it's fine. And I was like, but even if it doesn't look bad, that doesn't really make sense, in my opinion, from a design point of view. And it's really easy to change it, so I didn't do it that way. I kept alternating, increasing, a knitting a row because I think that's just better. So while I can understand that's maybe what she wanted to design, I wasn't too happy with how that whole thing was handled and how I was made to feel like I was an idiot almost for how I've interpreted it or misinterpreted the pattern, if you will. This experience with it as well just kind of made me go, I've got quite a few Caitlin Hunter patterns and I think I'm just going to leave them to the side for now. This one I'm knitting for my friend, obviously. So I want to get it done. I want to talk about it to show off her yarn and everything. But it hasn't been my favourite pattern. Hasn't been my favourite knitting experience, not going to lie. So I just wanted to be honest about that. That I didn't like how all of that was handled. And I've had it before that I've contacted designers and been all like, is it just me or is there a mistake? And they're like, oh no, you're right, there is a mistake. Or sometimes they're like, oh no, that's not a mistake. But obviously I haven't made it clear enough if someone's confused about it. And you're never going to be able to please everyone, I get that. But I think the important thing is, it's all about how you handle it. And you kind of just go, you know what? There could be some clarification. And I've not been the only one to get confused by that. Because they're like, oh, well, actually, if you search in the Ravelry group, someone's already asked this and it's been answered. And I'm like, oh, sorry. The thread is really long and I didn't know you could search in it. I'm not a big Ravelry user. Because, well, Ravelry has its own issues, which I don't want to get into again. But so I just didn't like how that was kind of handled. I'm like, well, if you've had issues with this before, why hasn't the pattern quickly been updated? You know, you can say work another right side row with no increases. Simple. I get that. That makes sense. That was a long ramble. Isgold Sweater. It will be done soon. Next one, my Foxtail Socks. Foxtales. I always want to say foxtail, but it's plural, tails. There's not too much progress on this one because I've been trying to finish the Isgold Sweater because that I started first before working on this. But this is where we're at now. So last time I only had like a row of the ribbing and now finished the ribbing and started the colour work. So like I mentioned in the last podcast episode, I'm inverting the colours other than for the foxes. So that's why this is now the maple colour instead of driftwood. Shell will stay the same, but all of these will be flipped around and these will stay the same. But yeah, so not much really to say about it. I did this all in one day, but like I said, I then wanted to kind of focus a bit more instead of doing a little bit on everything, to kind of focus my attention a bit more and actively try to finish some projects because I've got too many on the go again. I'm back up to, I was at 23. I think I've got obviously less than that now because I've finished some. And I'm also being better about not casting on everything. So, like I said, that was one day's progress. I haven't worked on them more. But once the Isgold, well, I can't work on the Isgold Sweater now anyway. So then the Foxtail Socks are my next kind of focus project. Because I think that's the last thing I'm really working on for someone. Because I finished the secret project. I think so. Until I get that last skein from Helena and finishing the Isgold. What next? Let's talk about my intersection socks. Oh, my throat is really bothered now. So my intersection socks, once again, they're in a project bag that I bought from Georgie. Last time I showed the finished sock and I hadn't started the second. So the yarn I'm using, Winter's Dawn by the Fibre Fox, just dropping my knitting needles everywhere. Still haven't woven the ends in. Still haven't blocked this long beast. You can watch my last podcast episode where I kind of talk about what's going on with that. Anyway, so I've started the second one. I'm kind of trying to breeze through these because there's not that much to say. So there's the second one. I've done two cable repeats. Yeah, two. which I think again was one day's progress, where I kind of just sat down, did all the increases, and then did 2 pattern repeats. So I've still got quite a while to go before I hit the heel. But it was from the heel onwards that everything went really quickly. It's just this beginning stuff that took me quite a while. And like I mentioned in the last video, podcast episode, I switched and changed my mind that I'm now working the cables to not use another needle. So I kind of just take my needle and pop it into, so it's a 4-stitch cable. So what I do is, if I'm working a cable round, I either slip my needle into the 3rd and 4th stitch at the front or at the back, drop these first 2 stitches off, and then pick them up. So I twist the stitches before I've worked them. And for the most part, that's quite easy. Getting into the front of them, I find a bit more trickier than the back. So that takes me a little longer. But slowly making progress, And these are my January socks. So the colour was from the Mystery Sock Club for January. But also, this is my January pair for the 52 weeks of sock challenge that I'm doing, where I'm knitting 12 pairs from the book. So this is the first pattern in the book, intersections, and I still haven't finished them. But it's fine. I'm not too worried and stressed about that. I've mentioned that before. Those will be done at some point. I'll get onto the next one. I've already got the next few planned out. I don't want to lose that. But I need to finish some projects. And I've currently got those socks on the go, the Foxtales ones, and they're both, a bit more intense. The intersections ones are definitely less intense than the Foxtales, because the Foxtales now, I think I'm just about to join the 3rd colour again, and that makes them just a bit harder because you've got to manage 3 balls of yarn, and the intersections is just kind of remembering which row I'm up to, and it's not a hard sock pattern at all. It's a really good one to actually try from the book. I think most people have started with Bembe? I think that's how one of those pronunciations might be right. But I quite like this one as well. It's not hard, it's just, I don't want to split my attention too much anymore. Foxtail socks, intersection socks. Next we'll talk about my steeking project, because I've actually made some progress. This is how much I have left of my first skein of yarn, of my main colour, which is exciting. So, last time you saw this, I actually have a progress keeper in here. So I can show you exactly where I was last time I shared it, because I didn't share it last week because I'd made no progress. Let me just find the marker. So last time, so I'm just going to show you the back because it's the easiest. Last time I was here, so I was close to finishing the colour work, but now I've actually finished it off. Isn't that beautiful? So the way that I've split it up, because all the colour work, the contrast colour is meant to be one colour, but I made the choice to use minis. Ugh. There we go. So you can see where I was up to last time, just starting on this kind of dark blue colour, and then finishing now with the kind of lighty bluey grey. And I've split for sleeves, and I've done about an inch, bit more than an inch of the body. Still obviously working the steek at the front, which isn't always perfect because you've got the tension with the colour work. I also, at one point, I don't think I ever shared that, my stitch count was off, so I kind of decreased, and then I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that right by the steek. It'll be fine, I'll secure it at some point. I'm trying not to stress about this. I think it looks beautiful. I've got a really tiny cable for the body, so this is actually bigger than it looks. The size will be perfect. I know it will. And now I'm just kind of up to just more plain stockinette. I'm not going to do waist shaping. I think especially for cardigans, I don't think I'll get a lot of wear out of it if I do that. So I kind of just bumping the table. So I'm just working stockinette, and the fun thing is every time you finish a round you have to do those 5 steek stitches in the middle, so it kind of just keeps you a bit awake and going. But I'm at the fun part now where I find when you've cast on underarm stitches, the first few rounds are a bit awkward because the backwards loop method of casting on is quite... The stitches are kind of tight when I have to work them, but they're actually quite loose once you've worked them. And so it's just all a bit awkward for a bit until it all kind of sorts itself out with a couple of rows, I find. Might just be my tension. But yeah, so progress is being made on this. It's mainly a project I've been working on when, I don't know, playing D&D, for example. This is something I'll knit on. But I did all of that progress in a couple of days. But then kind of put this on hold because I wanted to, once again, focus on the Isgold. But now this is kind of, well, it's not meant to be my main kind of jumper project, even though it's going to be a cardigan. I'll talk about that one probably next. But colour-wise, so my main colour is Rust Bucket by Ducky Darlings, and the minis are also Ducky Darlings. And they're all from her Darks paint box collection, I think they're called. So the first colour I used was this one here. So they don't have names, but you can see that with this first one, I didn't actually really use that much. It's not going to focus, is it? Yeah, so I didn't really use too much of that first one. Then the second one I used quite a lot of, but I had to be really careful. I had to be really careful with how I split up the colour work because I didn't want to do it halfway through like a design. I liked to switch when there were these kind of lines in the pattern. Third colour, let me just confirm, yep, it is this one. So this is the third colour. Then we've got the dark blue, which those last two I probably used as much as of the first one. And then the last one I barely used anything because it was only, I think, 4 rows of colour work. And you can also see I wound it into a ball because all of these I used my actual wool winder. But this one, I think, was I talking to someone? I think I was talking to a friend of mine. And so I didn't want to set up the wool winder and stuff while I was talking to her online via Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, Messenger, one of those. I think it was just an audio call. So I just wound it by hand and really didn't use much of it at all. So I actually think these would be a beautiful pair of like scrappy socks or something. And I'm sure I've got 2 more of Rust Bucket, I think, which will be more than enough to finish it. So I can either use the leftovers of this to then make a pair of scrappy socks with what I've got left here, or I've also been thinking about whether I want to incorporate some of these design elements into the sleeve and work some colour work there. Even if it's just, so what you can see here with where I've changed colour is I've always done it after I've worked, you know, when I'm about to work, like for example, just a 1 colour knitted section where there is no colour work, and then switched, and I didn't want to do it halfway through an actual proper design. Like I could have switched to this lighter colour here, but I just really didn't want to do that. I wanted it kind of in stripes almost. So it just means I didn't use all that much, and probably could have used like 1 less colour, but I really love it. I really love how this has turned out. So currently, as much as I want to knit on this because I'm really ready to get to the steeking part, I just want to know what it's like. Obviously I still need to do the sleeves and everything, and then I need to block it before I can steek it, but I'm just excited to get to that. So next, continuing on from this, this is the jumper I'm meant to be working on. So part 2 of this video, so spoilers, you already know what that is now, part 2 of my dark water sweater is out. I released it, I think it was on Wednesday. I was meant to release it on Friday last week, but then didn't because it took me quite a while to find the time, well, to make the time to edit my German podcast episode and get that up. So then I didn't want to then immediately release another video. I wanted to wait a little while. So that's why it came out later than it was meant to. Door slamming, neighbours. But this is where I'm up to now with my dark water sweater. So things are actually getting interesting. So the second video for this, like I said, is out. I have worked more on this, and a third video will obviously be coming. But I'm hoping in the third video to get through most of the colour work, and then after that will probably only be one or more, maybe 2 videos just for me to kind of sit down and check in a bit with the pattern. But after the colour work, it's really just stockinette, because I'm not going to, once again, I'm not going to do waist shaping. And I really need to focus on this project. So this is my dark water sweater by Jennifer Steinguess. I'm all over the place today. This is how I talk normally though, so enjoy my scatterbrainedness. But this I'm knitting for the Knit Love Wool knit along that's happening, which ends on the 10th of April. I know I can get this done before then, but actually, need to spend some time knitting on this. But I have just finished the last increase round that involves colour work. And I think that's what was slowing me down. I wasn't enjoying worrying about the tension with the increases because they're not standard increases, at least not what I find is standard. They're lifted increases, which I also did for my Cozy Classic Raglan, but I didn't have to worry about colour work with this one. And here you have to worry about the tension of your increases, the tension of your colour work, and it was just getting a bit, just making me angry. But I've done that now, so now I should fly through the rest of the colour work, because I am finding it really enjoyable. Or for all my worries about superwash yarn and colour work, bad experience with those Gryffindor socks, but this is working out really well. So noodle soup yarn, this is charcoal, my main colour, and this is chainmail, my contrast colour. So like I mentioned in those knit along videos that I've done, sometimes the chainmail colour ends up being almost the same colour as charcoal, but I like that. I like that it kind of blurs a bit more. So hopefully 2 weeks time in my next video, maybe all of the colour work will be done. That would be good, because then I think that's actually the end of the knit along, isn't it? So maybe, there would roughly be. Ooh, I've got 2 weeks to finish this. I need to get cracking and not focus on anything else, just this one. So like I said, that's why I have to stop working on my Otra Yoke cardigan by Skeindir, which I never mentioned the name. I'm doing very well today. I've still got more works in progress. Jeez Louise. The next one I didn't share last time. So I didn't share this last time because I hadn't really worked on it all that much. And now all of a sudden I've just not wanted to really work on anything else. But obviously I have to, because this is not an important project and it's going to look a bit weird. And I'll explain why. But this is the Ito shawl by Melody Hoffman, and this is what it's looking like right now. So you can see I'm doing the colour change right now, and I'm doing it differently to her. I've mentioned that before. The first colour change I did quite drastically. The second one I've tried to be a bit better about it, and I like it. It looks a bit more stark on camera than I find it is in person. And I'd hoped to get through the colour change in the garter section, but I started too late. But it's fine, I can still do it in the lace. So I'm at 140 stitches by the end of this lace section. Obviously I'll have more because I keep increasing. But it's looking a bit weird because I've got my yarn on a sock blocker. Now the reason I've done this is the yarn I'm using is Plötterlopi, so I'm using 3 different colours. I've got that black, My kind of main colour's been this dark grey, which is so beautiful, and I'm now switching to this lighter grey. Now this isn't attached to my work, because if you've never worked with Plötterlopi, I have talked about it before when I talked about the shawl. Sorry, I just want to make sure I don't rip this. It's delicate. It's a unspun yarn. I think people call it pencil roving. Is that what they call it? And so it is quite delicate if you pull at it from a distance. Close up it's fine, it's just from a distance. The reason I wrapped it around this is I was starting to run out of the second colour, this dark grey. And so I wanted to transition in my last colour, this lighter grey. But I didn't want to keep breaking the yarn, rubbing in the next one, because you can just do that and rub them together because it's not spun. So what I did was I split up this dark grey plate. They're plates, not skeins, as you can see, plate. And I split up this one and then incorporated that lighter grey into it. And then had this pile of yarn and was like, oh, I can't just wind this into a ball, even if I'm being gentle with my hands, because it will stick too much. And if it starts to pull, that's going to be dangerous. So I looked around and then this was the best thing I had. So I started winding it around here and I'm just slowly working off this now. And it means I don't have to constantly worry about, oh crap, I need to change colour. And it means I'm going to end up using up all of this second colour, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'll probably have some of this left over at the end. I've got quite a lot of black. I've actually got the black in here. I mentioned this project back before. My mum bought it for me in Dubai, just from a market. And I'm a Leo, so it's quite fitting and cute. But this is how much I actually have left of the black. I didn't use much at all, but I have got plans for this. I'm just keeping it in here to keep it safe. But yeah, so it's looking a bit weird, but once I've worked through all of this, there was way more on this. I've just been working on this like a mad woman. Once I've used all of this, I'll rejoin from the middle, because I find that's the best way to work with this yarn, pulling from the centre. It's tricky at first because everything's tightly packed, but it then gets easier. And I've still got quite a few sections left. I think after this lace, I have to do it twice more, maybe twice more. But I'm getting there. I'm really flying through the shawl. It's all I really want to work on. I love working with this yarn. It is quite rustic. I know a lot of people will probably find it scratchy, but I love how it feels. I love how it smells. Oh, I just love everything about it. So this has very much been my evening kind of knitting project because I just find it so enjoyable. The lace slows me down, which is what I'm up to now. The garter section that I just finished before this lace section, I got through in an evening. The lace section does take me a bit longer because I have to look at the pattern because it changes, obviously, every row. But I've been loving it. And like I said, all I want to work on, but I'm not allowing myself. It's a project I only really allow myself to pick up if I really can't face knitting on anything else because I'm too tired. So that's my Ito shawl. And then another shawl slash scarf slash wrap that I haven't touched in a really long time. So for any of you who've only been watching me this year, you'll have never seen this before. If you have watched my first episode though, you'll recognise this because that's how long I've been working on it. My Nobu shawl is back. I have finally picked it up again to work the second half. So last year when I talked about this, last time I talked about it, I was here. So you can see that line there. You cast on stitches for both this half and this half, but then you only work with half of them. You work the entire shawl, you pick up these stitches that you left, and then you work the second half. And I just couldn't bear immediately starting the second half because the first one took me so long. But I've done it. I've picked it up. I'm working the decreases. So if you're kind of mirroring it, I'm roughly like down here now. So every row is getting quicker and quicker, and I'm trying. That secret project I'd been working on was my kind of like half an hour of roughly every day project. This is the new one. It's one of my oldest whips, and I want it done because I think it is beautiful. It's just, it's an intense pattern, which I like a lot more now than I did at the time, but I think the break's been good for me. So I'll quickly show the yarn, but once again, I don't want to talk about this too much because if you want to hear me, all the process I went through, just watch some of my older videos. Oop, that's a warning. My parents over Christmas really got me into Formula One, and the qualifying round starts in 10 minutes in Bahrain, and I really want to watch it. So I'll probably take a break after talking about this. These two are by the Fibre Fox, and this one here I know is Wildflower by Truly Hooked. I get these two confused all the time. One of them is Rainbow Reflections, one of them is something else. Yeah, so one of these, I think this is Rainbow Reflection, Rainbow Drops, Rainbow Reflections. I've confused it in so many videos. I'm sorry, Georgie, I am not the big fan I thought I was, because I can't get this right. And my computer's fallen asleep because it wants me to shut up too. But love it, continue to work on it, I want this done. And once again, this is my favourite project bag I have from the Fibre Fox. I think it's also the first one I ever bought. Love it so much. Well, I'm going to take a break there. I think, oh, that was also my last whip. How beautiful is that? I have nothing to say about my Telegram cardigan because I haven't been working on it. I want to, but like I said, I want to finish off some other bits. So I'm going to go watch some Formula One and then I'll be back to finish off this video. And then I need to film it in German. I did enjoy filming in German. It's just, it's exhausting doing 2 videos back to back. But it's what I need to do. It's, when I'm in the mood to film, I need to make use of that. But the video's not over. You've got more to watch. So the lighting and everything's very likely to be different now because it's a couple of hours later. Watched the qualifying round of the Bahrain Grand Prix and it was fun. Not what I was hoping for, but it'll be a cool race tomorrow. Anyway, so I have shared all of my works in progress that I've shown before. So now I want to share, I've got one new cast on and everything else I want to share is things I'm hoping to cast on soon. It's a bit of a spoiler really of what's coming, but I thought I'd share it because it's some cute yarn. So my new cast on, let me see if I remember. Yeah, that's the right side. This, I'll share it before I start rambling on. This is all I've got so far. This is the Spring Intentions wrap. Give you a bit of a close-up. So you can see there's this like knit pearl texture, which is beautiful, and an I-cord edge. This pattern is by Kat, who has her own podcast called Heather and Hops. I don't think I've ever talked about her podcast before, but I really enjoy watching it. She's a very, I don't know, like part of the reason why this is called Spring Intentions is it was, the pattern was released on the spring equinox and she's running a knit along right now. And so every Saturday there's the option to take part in a Zoom chat, which I did last week, really enjoyed it, hoping to do it again today. And she also includes as an optional thing just kind of some meditative stuff and thinking about your intentions and potentially, you know, doing intentional knitting, is that what it's called? My brain's all confused now because I'm in Formula One mode. But anyway, so her whole channel is just really beautiful with the things that she knits, and I find it's a very peaceful podcast, which I think her latest video she said she finds that really funny because she thinks she's quite like chaotic and stuff, but I find it's very calming listening to her talk about her knitting and her kind of journey with it all. But yeah, so whoever's taking part in that knit along, we're knitting this. Obviously, it's her pattern, it's the Spring Intentions wrap knit along. I need to get focused. But the yarn that I'm using, let's talk about that. So it's meant to be a main colour and 6 contrast colours. And originally I had a plan and I had the yarn all laid out, and I was like, while it would work, I just didn't feel it. It just didn't feel right. And it felt like I was forcing using stuff from my stash because I didn't want to buy anything. But it just didn't make sense. And I was like, nope, I'll rethink it again. It's fine, I'll find something. And then when I was kind of doing sort of a stock take, I guess you could say, where I kind of just check through the yarn that I've got to either decide what do I want to cast on next or what stuff, because I keep my actual stash where I've got no project in mind separate to where I've got projects planned. Now that planned yarn doesn't always necessarily become what it was planned to be. That's fine. But I was checking through, and I think it's when I wanted to start those Hundertwasser socks that I showed, that I found some more of the Mystery Sock Club that Georgie dyed up last year that I hadn't used yet, because I've only used the January one so far, and I think I've got 5 in total. I think so. I think I bought 5 last year. I think that's potentially all she did last year because she took a break around summertime, so that would make sense. But I'd looked at all of it and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. The colours I've got left are for February, March, April and May. I really struggle to say my months in order in English because I always say them in German. But yeah, my alphabet I can only say in English. I can't do it in German. Like in order, I struggle. I have to translate. Same thing with seasons. I have to say it in German, translate to the English. Oh, bilingual brains are funny things. Anyway, so I was looking through the stash, and the first one I found, dropping stuff everywhere again, is this one, which is the one from February last year. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. I think it's called Darling? Cut myself off there, but it is called Darling. So this is the February one from last year. That's Darling. Back then I didn't have a yarn winder, so I did it by hand. So that's fun. I actually prefer working from a ball. I don't know, I think it just feels more traditional. Then I've got Spring Has Sprung and Tulip Garden. So these are the 3 that I'm going to use as contrast colours. And I saw these and they immediately made me think of spring. So obviously these are quite similar, but then the like yellows and greens is where this one then fits in nicely, but it's also got some of those pinks. So I think these work perfectly together. And then they're all on her plumpy base because that's what I bought the sock club on last year. And that's where I've made those blue socks before. That's the only pair, like, skein of yarn from that mystery sock club from last year I've used. And the only other plumpy I had left was this one skein, which was one of her happy accident colours. And I was like, but it's perfect because those 3 contrast colours are all like ground, spring, new flowers and things, and this is the beautiful spring sky. So I'm only, I think, about halfway through the pattern for week 1. Week 2 just got released this morning. So I'm hoping to work on this today, finish up part 1, start part 2 soon. Ideally, I'd always like to start part 2 on the Saturday when it's released, but I've got a lot of projects. But I'm really enjoying this so far. The Zoom chat last week was really nice, getting to meet kind of new people and just chat about knitting and stuff, and knowing we're not all currently working on the same thing because some people are still waiting for the yarn to arrive. But yeah, so it is a superwash yarn, and I know Kat prefers using non-superwash, and I think I'm heading towards that too. But I have a lot of superwash yarn because that's what a lot of indie dyers use, and I still want to support those people because a lot of them are my friends. But I think I am potentially the only person currently who's not using 6 contrast colours. So I've got a rough idea of how I'm going to double these up. But I think I might also just let myself be a bit relaxed with it and go, if it's meant to be, if this is contrast 1 and 2, let's say, then if I'm meant to use it again, but I think another colour would be better, I'm just going to switch it. I'm not going to force myself to be stuck with what I've decided at the beginning. I'm just going to have a fun and play around with it. But yeah, so that's all I've got so far. And it's meant to use up pretty much all of the yarn. So I did have to do some calculating to make sure I kind of will have enough. But I've got one more skein of plumpy yarn, which is I think called like a Splash of Summer or something, and it would work, but those ones were kind of the best. So that's my new cast on. I also dropped my notebook earlier. I'm just so out of it now because I just spent 2 hours working on my dark water sweater actually, so I made myself panic when I was recording earlier and I was like, I only have 2 weeks, I need to get working. But it's good, I'm making progress. Then, plans. Let's talk plans. The first thing, this is also sort of like new things that have come into my life that I'm not sure if I've shared any, or because some of it I've had for a little while, so I'm not sure if I've shared it before. But the first thing is this. So these are 2 50-gram skeins. Words were just gone. The base I bought is BFL, so I want to make some socks out of this, and I quite like BFL for socks. I find it's a bit sturdier. It's still got nylon, so it's a 75-25 blend. And this is one of Ducky Darling's sister sets. So she's just released these, and I thought it was adorable, the fact that you get 2 different colours that match. So I'm hoping to make some socks with these, obviously, but I want to do kind of helical knitting. I think that's what it's called. Helix knitting? Helical? Something like that. So I'm going to make stripy socks, but instead of kind of actually constantly switching at the beginning of round marker, you slip like the last 3 stitches, and then it just kind of means you literally are just knitting both and a kind of like helix up. But yes, I'm going to make some stripy socks, which I think will be really cool. And I've got specific plans about what socks to make because they're going to be for someone, but I don't want to say for who. So this is my next sort of secret project, but I don't have to keep it as secret as the other secret project because there's no way to really know who's going to get these. Whereas with the other one, when you see it, you'll get why I can't show it. So sorry to have to keep kind of teasing it, but you'll see it soon. But so I'm hoping to actually start these socks today because I'm really interested in trying helical knitting. I've been watching a lot of videos about it. And then the next thing I'm going to cast on the 1st of April. I've wanted to start ever since I got my colour. I think I might have shared this already. I bought this a couple of weeks ago now from Woolly Mammoth Fibres, and this is one of her limited edition bases. So this is blue Texel and lamb's wool. And it's just a really kind of rustic, just plain grey undyed colour. And like I said, it's one of her limited edition bases. It's nylon free, non-superwash. And yeah, the fibre comes from Northern Ireland, so she's based in Northern Ireland. And Emma, who runs Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co., has her own YouTube channel that it's also one of the ones I love watching. So I've got 3 of these, and when I bought these, I didn't really have a plan in mind, but I was kind of thinking some kind of a steeked project could be nice because of the fact that it's superwash and a bit rustic. And then when I showed the yarn going everywhere, I showed the Strands of Joy book in my last episode and said the first one I'm going to knit is the Woodland Cardigan. That's what this is going to be. And this is the contrast colour that I just received the other day. So this is kind of why I'm sharing this now. So this is what I'm going to use as the contrast colour. There we go, now you can see the colour nicely. So it's a kind of green with a bit of grey. It's kind of a heathery look. And that's what's going to be my contrast colour. So this is 100% lamb's wool. Yeah. And it comes from Scotland, which I think is really cool. And once again, it's also non-superwash. And now I'm out of focus. Yeah, so it's called Dark Green Grey. It's the Le Petit Lamb's Wool. I'm not going to try and pronounce the brand because I think it's French, but I'll have it linked below. But yes, I'm going to make the Woodland Cardigan by Anna Joanna from the Strands of Joy book that came out recently. And the reason I'm waiting until the 1st of April to cast on is, I've mentioned this before, that Georgie from the Fibre Fox is going to be running a knit along where you can knit anything from that book. So that's why I've held on, though the group chat we have, some people have already started. I don't blame them. I wanted to start this, but I've decided to hold on because I've got enough to be working on. I've got things I need to finish for people. So 1st of August, that gives me 1st of April. I'm not waiting until the 1st of August. With the 1st of April, it gives me some time to finish off other bits, and then I can really focus on this. So it might actually be that the first thing I properly steek could be this and not that other cardigan. Be classic me, wouldn't it? It's like the dark water sweater video that I'm filming was meant to be me knitting my first colourwork sweater. I finished another one in that time because I was test knitting one. But it's my first fingering weight one, so it's still okay, right? The last thing I'm going to share is the March colour for the Fibre Fox Mystery Sock Club. So if you are waiting for yours, same thing as I've said the last 2 times, if you're still kind of waiting for yours, you don't want to have it be spoiled, look away now. I'm not going to describe the colour, but it's coming up now. So the first thing you'll notice is there's 2 skeins instead of 1. That's because I saw the inspiration picture and knew these weren't going to be socks. Too pretty for socks. It's going to be something else. So, aren't they stunning? So the colour is called Speckled Egg, which I think isn't a surprise if you've seen the inspiration picture. But I love it so much. It's so beautiful. So I think I'll probably knit some kind of a summer top out of this. I haven't fully decided, and to be honest, sadly, it's not going to be high on my list. I've got a lot of other things I need to work on. But absolutely stunning yarn. April's picture is out. With some kind of a flower. A yellowy, white, green flower? Something like that. But I do love that, and I think I can't see a reason why I would stop buying at least 1 skein a month. That's it. That's all the knitting stuff we've been recording. Well, the second session was much shorter, but in total it's going to be a classic me video. Over an hour, because she can't stop talking. What do I want to mention? There are a few things, actually. First of all, if you don't watch Yarn Street UK, I follow her on Instagram, and she's also got a YouTube channel. And her YouTube channel is quite cool because it's different to a lot of these other kind of knitting related ones, where she talks about, it's UK focused, but that's also what her Instagram page is focused on. But she talks about indie dyers and pattern designers and also podcasters who are based in the UK. So it's a quite cool resource to be able to find people locally if you are living in the UK. And I've watched her latest video and it was so lovely because she mentioned my channel, which was really nice, and just kind of said the nicest things about my channel, and it was just really weird watching it and hearing someone like say my name and refer to like the fact I'm doing a PhD, that I've recorded my videos now in German and in English, and it was just really nice. So that I kind of wanted to mention that as a thank you, because that is really nice when another channel has recognized you and mentions you. And I've already mentioned some other podcasts that I've been loving. So Kat from Heather and Hops is one I always get excited about. Emma from Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co is another one. And then obviously the ones I've talked about before. There's also some German ones I follow, but if you don't speak German, there's no point in me talking about them. But I guess I'll quickly mention as well, so I recorded and released my first episode in German, and it was really weird, but a lot of fun. And I even noticed that when I was editing, how differently I talk and kind of present myself in German compared to in English. So I thought that was interesting. So I'm going to try and do my best to keep recording both of them. So once I finish this, I'm going to immediately revamp this little area so everything's in sort of order again and record in German. Now, my first episode was lucky because it was episode 10 for my English one. So I've been able to... And I want the episode numbers to stay the same because I'm talking about the same thing. So it wouldn't make sense for my first German one to be episode 1 when it's actually episode 10 of me talking about my knitting. But because it was episode 10, I kind of just put the 0 in brackets and was kind of cheating. But from now on, I'm just going to start with 11 and stuff. But that's quite fun. And it also has meant I've interacted with a few other people now. And it's just interesting that I know there'll be some people who will only watch my English videos, some people will only watch my German videos, and my lovely mum, of course, watches both. I told her, I was like, why are you watching the German one? You've seen me talk about it in English already. So I need to think of a bit of a kind of schedule because I'm not sure if releasing both of them on the same day is smart, because I'm worried that people who watch my English one will then see my German one uploaded and maybe we'll miss the English one, so I still need to think about how to do it. But then I don't want the German speakers to have to wait for such a long time until they get to see it. So I'm going to have a bit of a play around with that. But the Easter break is coming up. I actually have a job interview before then. I've got a job interview on Tuesday, which I'm a bit nervous about, but I often think I get nervous because it's kind of interacting and meeting new people, and you never really know in a job interview what you're going to be asked. But at the end of the day, I'm like, if they don't want to hire me, they don't want to hire me. That's fine. You know, if they find someone better, they find someone better. And if I can't answer a question, it's not the end of the world. But so I've got to prepare for that. But over the Easter break, I've got a couple of video ideas. So I'm hoping I can record some of them. So you might be seeing a few extra videos because I've got some ideas that I've talked about in past videos last year, but then life got in the way and things got busy. So who knows, now that I've talked about it, might not happen again. But I think I'll leave it there because there's a lot more I could talk about. But more dark water sweater knit with me videos are coming. Like I said, I've got 2 weeks to finish that jumper. So the last video or two will probably not come out until the knit along's actually over. But that's just life, isn't it? Maybe that's what this video needs to be called. Keeping it real, and that's just life. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Obviously, like always, if you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. That would be amazing. Like everyone always says on here, it's the easiest way for you to not have to go searching if I've got a new video out. And what else was I going to say? There's going to be something else. Usual thing of if you want to kind of stay a bit more up to date on what I'm working on, Instagram is the best place to find me. It's @_Nina. Nope. I say it wrong every time. Every time. I either forget to mention the underscores or I add extra bits. It's @Nina_Maria_design. And I'd love to, hear what you're kind of working on. Have you got any plans, any knit-alongs and stuff that you're, excited for? Are you one of the people who's already started the Strands of Joy one that Georgie's going to be running? I don't blame anyone for that. I would have totally started already if I didn't have so many projects. But yes, I'm going to have a drink of water. I'm going to record in German. It's always really awkward when I start. It's awkward when I start in English, but in German there's a little bit of extra awkwardness because I mainly speak in English nowadays. But I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you're doing well. If you do celebrate Easter and all of that, I hope you have a good Easter break, if you're able to have a break. And you'll see me again very soon. But currently it looks like I'm going to be recording podcast episodes every 2 weeks. Unless, for some reason, I manage to knit a lot, which I doubt. I've got a PhD thesis to write. And a job interview to prepare for. Anyway, it's enough from me. Time for me to say it all over again in German. Stay safe, stay happy, and get crafting. Bye.